Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So we're back with more guide videos. Happy 11.1 Season 2 has dropped officially. So I hope that you are going to be enjoying the raid as you go in probably tonight for a majority of you, as this has been released to YouTube. And then those of you that are not raiders but do Mythic Plus, I hope the season treats you well. So I've got my monk guides out. Obviously, go check out the channel for those. But for many of you, you know that I've also have had a deep love of Druid, particularly Guardian and Feral Druids, for quite a while now. They've always been an alt that I've maintained and a character that I keep track of. I do play a little bit of balance and a little bit of restoration here and there, but really have fallen in love with Guardian and Feral. So that's today's guide, is Bear Druid. We're going to be looking at Guardian Druid for patch 11.1. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with my guide videos, I aim my guides to be more tailored towards folks that are newer to the spec, newer to the role of tanking in this case, or newer to, or maybe have played it for maybe like a season, but aren't sure exactly what you're going to need to get started come season 2, or in this case, season 2 or the next season. So that's what we're here to talk about. I'm going to go over everything you need to get yourself a foundation of what you need in order to kind of get yourself started. If you're a longtime Guardian Druid player, there's a lot of advanced tips and tricks that are out there that I'm sure you've picked up over time and that I've learned just from playing, even though I've not made it in quite a few seasons. Dragonflight Season 2 was the last time I made this character. But I do like to, you might get something out of this video as a more advanced player, but I don't think you're going to get as much as you maybe would hope that you would get clicking on a guide. So I just want to be upfront about that. That said, like, share, and subscribe if you have any friends that are interested in Bear Druid. So what I would talk about in these videos, we're going to talk about talents, we'll talk about stats, we'll talk about, and then talents will include, of course, hero talents. We're going to talk about your stats. We're then going to talk about your gear that you want to target, which are mostly, when I do gear, I focus mostly on things like your weapon and trinkets, because they're generally the most impactful pieces of gear that you get on your character every season. Plus, you're locked into like your 4-piece bonuses and stuff like that. And then we'll talk about, generally speaking, consumables and chance that you want to get, and then just a quick overview of your rotation. Now, for Guardian Druid, the rotation is not overly difficult. That's always been a lot of people's criticism of the spec, is that it's not hard to play. I actually think that sometimes that is a strength of the spec because it allows you to focus on a lot of other things. So let's dive right into a talent build here first. We're going to start off with a raid build. Now, there are 2 raid builds that you can play, and I'll try to put both of them down in the description. I need to do that and edit my monk videos for that. But there is a Druid of the Claw, what's called the Kitty Weaving build, and then there's a little bit more of a standard Elune Chosen build that keeps you pretty much in bear form the whole time. So we'll look at the kitty form. There's only a couple of talents that you really change for the Elune's Chosen build, so I don't have to like create a full new build for that. But we'll look at the hero talent setup for it as well. Some big things to think about when it comes to this Druid of the Claw, where this is only really good in raid because you're not actively tanking all the time. And when you're not actively tanking, you can slide into cat form to do a little bit of extra DPS, just to squeeze out that little bit of extra damage. It's a little bit more of an advanced playstyle, but one that I think you can find your way into working on, since the Bear Druid rotation on its own is fairly simple. This will allow you to add a little bit more complexity without adding a lot more cognitive load, in my opinion. So what are the talents that are mandatory here? Obviously, you get Frenzied Regen as a baseline talent here, as well as Thrash. And then Verdant Heart you get at level 10 automatically. So these are 3 talent points right here that you don't have to spend. So you do have to grab Rake and Rip. And then you also grab Grievous Wounds, because it helps your Thrash damage and Bear, and of course your Cat Weaving damage. You're going to grab Primal Fury, which is going to help with your Crit Strike. And then you're going to grab the other main talent. The 2 main talents that you want to grab are Fluid Form, where you don't have to like spend a GCD to go into cat form and then go from there. You can literally just hit cat form. Like, I'll show you real quick down here. So alright, so we're in bear form here, just to show you. So like, obviously I'm in bear form, and then I can hit, I got my button here, hit cat form, and you automatically go into cat form. So that's what fluid form does. So it saves you from having to, like, if I wanted to go back into bear form, what I would do is, let me put it on my bars, because it's specifically a thing I do for this build, is that I'd, boom, mangle, cat form, and then when mangle's back up, so it just saves you the GCD, because normally you'd have to, like, go into cat form, wait for the GCD, go into bear form, wait for the GCD. So it just allows you to just do that swap a lot more efficiently than what you would otherwise. Some other talents to kind of be aware of here. This is a new one, Circle of the Wild. Obviously, it's going to increase your physical damage, which is the majority of what you do with this build. And then here, you can take Renewal if you feel like you need the on-demand heal, but the choice with it, Ascend is Renewal, is actually a new talent, but very, very good. Other than that, you just kind of take things to allow you to get down to places. Like this Astral Influence is probably a flex point. You can grab something like Perfectly Honed Instincts, Matted Fur potentially, Ursine Vigor you can also grab out of this build. You can go grab an Improved Stampeding Roar. I just did the extra range, but this is a complete flex point that you can use pretty much anywhere you want. You're still getting this magical damage and healing. There are some people that skip this a little bit as well, so that opens at 3 points. So you can grab all 3 of those other talents. I wouldn't recommend it because Moonfire still is a big part of the rotation, even as Druid of the Claw, through things like Galactic Guardian over here. So I would say you can skip these, but I wouldn't recommend it. But this point right here in particular, 1000% a flex point you can put wherever you want. Over in the class tree, there are a few things that you can do with this build that will also switch over. Some people are not taking Survival of the Fittest in some of the early builds that I've seen. Just getting that reduction on your bark skin and Survival Instincts is nice for raid purposes, but only a 24% reduction at 2 points of cost is not super effective. So some people are using it to put in Ursol's Warding, especially if there's a heavy magic damage fight. So obviously these are going to be fight dependent. And you need this in order to, like, you need one of these 2 talents to get down into Thorns of Iron and Berserk Persistence. So Survival of the Fittest is, like, generally useful, but then Ursol's Warding is going to be very, very good if there's, like, a heavy magic damage fight that is coming up in the raid situation. So you kind of have to know the damage patterns and what the damage types are. But there is value in taking this talent. Beyond that, you've taken a lot of physical damage talents. So obviously Rend and Tear. This point in Flashing Claws can be moved around. You can grab Ursoc's Fury if you want. You can grab a second, grab Raise if you want, but that's only if there's like AoE targets. And with Ravage, there's not really a need. So this just kind of allows you to gain, the extra stack. So you get 4 stacks of it, which means you're getting 8% damage to them and 8% damage reduction. So it's just a steady point. But if you want to grab something like Ursoc's Fury, you can. Or if you want to go grab something like Earth Warden, grab something like a point in Reinvigoration just to be a little bit more passive, you can. Or even if you want the second charge of Survival Instincts, you can. But then I would just take these 2 points out, put 1 here and 1 here. Or even grab like Dream of Scenarios for extra healing if you're looking for some alternative ways to be defensive. Like, this point is just really, really good for damage. Alright. From the hero talent trees, you're obviously grabbing Ruthless Aggression, giving you auto attack speed, which means more rage for bear, which is always super valuable. There's almost no circumstance where you're going to play Killing Strikes. There's some value in it potentially in Mythic Plus, but I just think this is just like generically good all the time. So Mangle granting Feline Potential. Basically, it makes it so that every time you use Mangle, which resets a lot through Gore, you could potentially drop immediately into a 5. When you switch into cat form, you'll immediately go into a 5 combo point, which allows you to rock off like a huge rip to get the dot duration up. This is just a really, really powerful talent. It's very, very good for this build, whereas Empowered Shapeshifting is like fine, but it doesn't do anything. Whereas Wild Power Surge just offers a ton of damage potential in it. And then Strike for the Heart here just gives you a small heal on Mangle, which is never a bad thing. Extra crit on them is like fine, but it's not like the greatest. This requires that you use Pulverize, which I don't use in any build. I don't like Pulverize. I never have. So Strike to the Heart is always going to be there. And then Claw Rampage, of course, just makes it so that you gain your Ravage more often, and Ravage obviously does big damage on your Maul. And when you get it empowered through Tooth and Claw, which you can do, you can get a Ravage that's empowered by Tooth and Claw. It does quite a bit of damage. It can hit quite hard. Now, there is a build that allows you, if you don't like this cat weaving build, there is a perfectly fine build that uses Elun's Chosen. The big talent point changes really are just going to be 2 points. You're going to switch Circle of the Wild over to Circle of the Heavens, since Elun's Chosen leans a lot more into arcane damage. This just boosts that. And then you're going to take Fluid Form and switch it out for something like Ursine Vigor, Perfectly Honed Instincts. Again, this talent point is a complete option. You can switch it out to grab Imp Stamp Roar. Some options for you here. In terms of what you would do talent point wise in this build, you're going to use this is just like a utility node. You just take Moondust generally. Arcane Affinity or Lunation, you can kind of pick either. I would choose Arcane Affinity for raid build purposes because it just lasts a lot longer. And then you grab Light of Elune because you get the Fury of Elune, which is more damage. And then you want to grab something, then you want to grab Lunar Calling as your choice nodes, because Thrash dealing arcane damage and getting more damage in combination with Circle of the Heavens allows for just that stacking damage build. And then the points that you would switch out here is you would switch out Flashing Claws and Blood Frenzy for Twin Moonfire and Lunar Beam. If this was only 1 point, you could probably take Twin Moonfire and stick it over here and go this way around, but because it's 2 points, it's a heavy investment, and then go from there. So both builds are perfectly viable. Druid the Claw does have a higher DPS ceiling. Elun's Chosen build is going to be much more consistent and could potentially generically be better for the majority of fights. So good thing is, like I said, both talent builds are like viable. So it would look like this. Actually, grab Elun's Grace to get the shorter wild charge. Grab here. So this is what your tree would look like for Elun's Chosen. So overall, like I said, 2 good builds that you can use in raid. If you're in a fight that has a ton of consistent adds where you're not going to be able to take advantage of your cat weaving build, then Elun's Chosen build is going to absolutely be the way to go. And from what I understand in this raid, there's going to be a lot of multiple targets out there, so this build may not see as much play, but you can still potentially run with it on a fight like Sprocketmonger. Alright, let's look at the Mythic Plus build. The Mythic Plus build, sadly, there's not really a good Druid of the Claw situation out there because you are the solo tank, and Druid of the Claw really utilizes that intermixing of cat and bear form very well, and you just don't have the opportunity to do that a ton in the Mythic Plus situation. So Elun's Chosen finds its way into being quite powerful. So again, some potential flex points here. Something like Ursine Vigor. This just kind of helps more on pull, but you can grab something like Astral Influence or Natural Recovery if you would like to get something that maybe adds a little bit more flavor. This choice node, again, you can pick either one, Ascendan's Renewal or just straight up Renewal, whichever is your comfort. I'm not used to playing without Renewal. I've played a little bit of content, just like meme keys, and it's weird not having Renewal when I need it, but Ascendan's Renewal did offer a lot of healing over the course of the key. Unfortunately, I don't have the logs for them. Beyond that, there's the other thing you could potentially do is do Instincts of the Claw, but Maul damage is such a smaller portion of your damage in this build that it's not really worth it. Innervate is also a choice node depending on the healer and how their mana consumption is. That's another point where, again, you can take this and grab Natural Recovery and Astral Influence, or you can grab you get your Corruption, you get your Skullbash, you get your Soothe, you get your Typhoon, like you get all your control options. So really you can grab something like Imp Stamp Roar if you need it, You can shorten your Typhoon stuff. Like, you get some options here based on what you want to do, which is nice. It's something that this tree hasn't really had. Over in the class tree, if you'll notice the big thing with Mythic Plus, this is more pushed for like higher keys where your damage matters less as a tank than it does you just living. And this is where the new talent Reinvigoration and then Earth Warden, which has always been a really powerful defensive ability, just was always under a really not great talent. Reinvigoration got reworked to where it gives you like a massive amount of healing with Frenzied Regeneration, and then also giving you 2 of your Druid Hots over time as well. Just really adds up. And then you're seeing Ursol's Warding and Reinforced Fur, allowing you to access Soul of the Forest and Thorns of Iron. So it just allows for this. You can take these points out. You're going to skip Soul of the Forest, which means you'd also have to adjust. Like, basically, if you don't take this setup, you'll take these 2 talents. I almost pointed at my screen like you could see me do it. You'll take these 3 talents and shift them here so that you can still gain Soul of the Forest and gain access to Fury of Nature and Unchecked Aggression. And you'll take these 2 points and you would shift them over here so that you still have access to Thorns of Iron and Persistence. This is where After the Wildfire and Survival of the Fittest come into play. I've just noticed that in the key situations that I've been in, particularly because they're trying to, and from what I've seen from PTR testing, After the Wildfire does a shitload of overhealing, like it's 75 to 80% overhealing. Whereas here you're just gaining this consistent magic reduction, and in keys where there's a lot of magic damage, I'm particularly thinking of a place like Prior to the Sacred Flame. It's going to have a lot of magic damage in it, particularly like holy damage and radiant damage. It's going to be very, very useful. Floodgate's going to have some fire damage in it because of the boom factor. Mechagon has a lot of flame damage. Motherlode has a lot of fire damage. It's some frost damage as well. So there's a lot of just more magic damage in the dungeon pool, so something like Ursol's Warding just gains a lot more value. Flex point at the bottom of the tree, you could potentially switch out Blood Frenzy, but I think it's so crucial for Rage Generation that I wouldn't for something like Flashing Claws or grabbing like a point into Lady Moonlight. I just don't think it's worth it. Raise, again, you're not seeing a lot of because you're not getting Tooth and Claw procs. You're not casting Maul a lot. It basically is like it's technically like a rage dump, but in that case, you just are better off spending the stack on Iron Fur because you do physical damage when you apply Iron Fur. So something like Raise has kind of fallen off a lot because a talent like Thorns of Iron exists. And then, of course, you get your Lunar Beam set up here with Twin Moonfire because it just obviously plays very tightly into the Elun's Chosen build. And then here, you're playing Moondust. You play Lunation here, or you can play Arcane Affinity. I think either one's fine. I prefer Lunation to get the more common Lunar Beams because it also adds all that leech. Light of Elune here obviously gives a Fury of Elune. And then you play Lunar Calling because Thrash is such a big part of the damage profile. So yeah, this Mythic Plus build hasn't changed a lot. There are some people that are playing Ursol's Endurance. I'm going to try it out just to get the longer duration for something like Gory Fur. You can trade these points out, I think, because either way it still allows you to get to warding. So there's some value here that's kind of optional. I'm going to try Ursol's Endurance early on, really get a feel for how tough keys are, and if I find myself early on with my Druid not having a lot of situations where I'm feeling like I'm in real danger, I'll switch over to Gory Fur, just because I just don't think the increased duration is going to matter. But then again, Barkskin having a longer duration through a talent like Brambles means that you're getting 2 extra ticks of damage. So there's a trade. Alright, let's talk about let me grab my notes. Stat prio. Now, my gear on my Druid for Season 1 was kind of all over the damn place. So my stats are nowhere near. I have way too much mastery, which, I mean, if I was playing Moonkin, it'd be great, but I'm not. And I don't have enough crit for Feral, but that's the next video. Anyways, so stats for Bear Druid, you're really going to value still haste and versatility for defensive purposes. So haste and verse are going to be big. things that you want to chase. Crit and Mastery do help contribute towards your DPS. Obviously, crit is going to be valuable, particularly in the raid build, because a little bit more valuable in the raid build than it is in the Mythic Plus build, because you do grab things like Primal Fury to give you that extra combo point generation when you're in your cat form. So, like, ultimately, you want to try to get just item level, but then if you are sitting on, like, two pieces that are one's haste first and one's, like, say, crit mastery, you're probably going to want to take haste first in the majority of cases, just because it gives both offensive and consistent defensive benefit. Now, mastery does give some defensive benefit. It gives you more HP, but it's not the strongest mastery. So haste first, as it's been for a few seasons now, is still going to be the number one thing that you want to go chase, with crit mastery having some value. It's not like you don't want to avoid those stats, but if like I said, if you get a choice between wanting like a haste first piece versus a crit mastery piece, generally haste first is going to be better, assuming they're the same item level. If you're like 5 or 10 item levels higher and it's a crit mastery piece over your haste first piece, it's still probably going to be an overall upgrade, because the sheer amount of agility and stamina is going to outweigh the small bit of secondary stat benefit. And agility ultimately is still one of your best DPS and defensive stats, frankly. Alright, let's talk about enchants and consumables real quick before we go into the gear and then the very core basic rotation. So, again, this character not super optimized as it is right now. I basically was just chasing item level for a majority of the first patch. And I swapped mains twice, so this character, unfortunately, did not get up to where I wanted them to be. So for a weapon, you probably can't see it above my fat head here. No, you can, actually. So Authority of the Depths is still the overall best one. They did buff a few other enchants, but they're not enough right now based off the math calculations. It's not really, you don't really need a defensive enchant. Like, this enchant is an opportunity to get a little bit of extra damage. You can take Authority of Radiant Power, which does give you a little bit of extra agility on top of doing radiant damage. But the damage out of Authority of the Depths it procs at a much higher rate, which is where you're getting it from. For your cloak, you can see I've got Leeching Fangs on this now. You can take, because of the fact that, like, particularly in the Lunar Chosen build, you're getting extra leech when targets are inside your Lunar Beam. There is a little bit of leech stacking that you can end up getting, where leech is really, really good. But you can also grab something like Burrowing Rapidity, which is the speed enchant, if you prefer to have a little bit more movement speed. I've been on record that I'm a movement speed lover, so if I can move faster, I'm going to. But for the most part, like, because you get Feline Swiftness, you don't really need the additional movement speed. So something like Avoidance or Leech is just going to be much more valuable. Still getting Crystalline Radiance for the primary stat on your chest. Bracers are the same position as the cloak. Leech, speed, both of them are fine. Avoidance, it's fine. They're tertiaries. Grab whatever you want. Leggings of the Great Lynx, or the season 1 here, or in this case the legs. Agility, the defender, I think it's the Stormbound Armor Kit is the name of it. It does 930 strength and almost 900 stamina. Now, if you're someone that plays the intellect specs as well as the agility specs, there's a new armor kit that was introduced in this patch called the Charged Armor Kit, which gives less primary stat. It gives like 830 primary stat and does like 800 stamina, but it does for all primary stats. So if you're someone that plays a lot of balance or a lot of restoration in between playing Guardian Druid, then that Charged Armor Kit could work as like a temporary gap filler while you're getting to like optimized sets of legs for your thing, or if it's on your tier and it's the only one to get, you can use that. It's a little bit of min-max cost, but it's going to make quality of life playing multiple specs a lot better. Any leather worker can make that if they hit it Renown 5 with the cartels. So it's very easy to get. Everyone that is a leather worker in your guild that takes leather working even remotely seriously should be able to get it now if they've played any of the content at all. You can get to Renown 5 very quickly. Boots is still Defender's March. On your ring, you can get the Radiant Haste enchant, which is the 315 one. You can do the Cursed Haste enchant, which will drop your versatility a little bit, but I don't recommend that generally because these are two stats that you really like. So just get your haste enchant. You can also do a versatility enchant if you've got a lot of haste and need some versatility. But I would say that's a backup. Haste is still super, super valuable. All right, other consumables. For safety, if you want to do on your flask, you can run the versatility flask. I don't think I have any. Yeah, I've got a few versatility flasks left. Tempered Swiftness is also fine, but the reality is you're going to want to go grab Flask of Alchemical Chaos. Obviously, a Tempered Potion for your combat potions, Algari Healing Potions, or these Cave Dweller Potions. Both of them are pretty solid to be your healing potions to help you heal yourself in a pinch if you're running out of cooldowns. The Algari Mana Oil, mainly because of the haste and the little value that you get from crit. Food, you're going to want to do your feasts. The Everything Stew is pretty good. Belladar's Bounty is pretty good. Ideally, if you're running your own food, though, you at least can make them up and be hardy so that they last and persist through death. For your gems, I don't think I have any gem slots on this character. Oh, I have a socket that I never filled. You want to use the Culminating Blasphemite, which is primary stat plus a small critical bonus for every color Algari gem that you have. Oh, I have one here. It's Crit Haste. Because I was playing it when I was hard focused Feral. And then the Versatile Emeralds, which is high haste, low verse, is going to be the main gem that you want to use. Alright, so let's talk about gear, and we're going to mainly focus on the pieces that you want to go chase as part of weapons and trinkets. Like I said, tier sets, you're basically locked into 4 of those slots. It's kind of really just the first 4 that you get, or until you get all 5, you can kind of optimize. And then for bear, you're just almost every other piece, you'd rather just have it be haste first, as you can get it. Now, that said, for Liberation of Undermined, your best weapon, and the best weapon for Guardian in general, is going to come off the One-Armed Bandit. And that is the very rare Best in Slots. Druids can use two-handed maces, so that's why we're eligible to get this. That's why it has agility on it. It also has strength on it, mainly for the DKs and the warriors and the paladins. So basically, the reason why this was so good is that you do gain secondary stats, which again, Druid generally likes all 4. So the equip effect is quite nice. And then when you use it, you get your highest secondary stat for 15 seconds. So there's just a lot of value in it. And you can reconfigure it for spellcasting, which that part of it I'm not 100% clear on. I'll have to do some digging. But try to figure it out. I don't fully understand that part of it. But like, if you can get this trinket, it's a very rare drop that is quite good. Another raid weapon that you can go chase after is the Giga Bank Breaker. Or off the first boss, you can grab the Grease Monkey Shift Stick. This is probably going to be your best second option because of the stats on it. But if you can get the Best in Slots, which is a hilarious name, by the way, you definitely want to go get that. And then out of this, the Shift Stick is an option. Out of the dungeons, we're traveling back to our good friend Theater of Pain, because Zav's Pike of Authority is back as a great staff to gain out of Mythic Plus. Again, you have to get it at Myth Track at plus 10 dungeons in order to gain it at Myth Track. And for a lot of people, that's probably going to be easier to obtain than getting the One-Armed Bandit at Myth Track if you're looking to aim for that Myth Track level gear. So always good to have backup plans. That's why there's like 3 weapons that are good. Notice it's 2 haste first staffs and then 1 with a very powerful equip effect. That's generally going to be the case when it comes to Guardian Druid. As far as trinkets go, most of the best trinkets are going to come out of the raid. And that's because this raid for Druid, in particular for Balanced Druid, has like a lot of really awesome thing. Also love the symbol for the tier tokens. Casino chips. Makes me laugh. Anyways. So the first one is going to be the one that pretty much everyone and their damn mother's going to be chasing. And that is going to be the Eye of Kazan, or Kazan. I don't know which one it is. The Equip on Mastery is like not the greatest thing for Bear Druid, but it's still pretty good. The big thing is the Equip effect, where you gain the chance to gain the agility up to 20 times, and then when it fully empowers, you do a bunch of damage to enemies or heal some allies, so it has like some really good universal use. This is just a very powerful trinket. Like I said, biggest problem though is that it comes off the last boss, so if you want it again at the highest possible item levels, it's potentially a dinar choice once they implement those in the 0.5 patch. But unless you're a cutting edge raider, you're probably not going to see this trinket at the highest level, so you have to hope for it. Even a heroic version, a hero track version, is probably going to be significantly better than most other trinkets on Myth Track. Just that's how powerful this trinket is. Like, it is by far one of the most powerful. The other really strong trinket that you probably want to go chase, to me at least, is going to be off Rick Reverb, the third boss of the raid, and that is Reverb Radio. And that's basically because when you get an equip effect of more haste. So really strong trinket here. Again, a lot of specs are going to be chasing this because a lot of specs like haste. This is going to be a pretty powerful trinket for quite a number of people. So you're going to have high competition for it. And then there's a couple of other ones here that I think is good. Off the one-armed bandit, you can also grab the House of Cards, which allows you to, stack mastery. It's a pretty solid one particularly for damage. But again, a solid trinket, strong agility equip on it with 4,800 agility at Myth Track 3 of 6. And then off the second boss, this Mega Magnet is going to be good here, which just has an on-use effect that shoots out damage. Stack it 30 times. It's the physical damage version of Spymaster's Web, which may or may not be tremendous depending on what you're looking at. And then, of course, we love this toy in the toy box. Hopefully, we all get it quickly. Out of the dungeons, there's a couple of decent trinkets, but none that are like super standoutish. Signet of the Priory is pretty good, obviously, because you can gain a strong... if haste is your highest secondary stat, for example, you're going to guarantee everyone else in your party haste, which everyone likes. So if that's the situation, you can gain a lot out of that. And then the Cinderbrew Stein out of Cinderbrew Meadery is also a pretty solid trinket. Just because, again, it gives you, it's a pretty decent defensive trinket, because it gives you the Absorb, and then you can gain a bunch of agility off of it, and then you're always taking a sip below 50%, so you probably don't even have to... it's on a passive trinket, so you don't even... you're going to get this on an RNG proc. But, I mean, once a minute, knowing that you're going to get a decent Absorb shield makes it a pretty solid defensive trinket if you need it. So, just the trinkets out of the dungeon this time around aren't the strongest. Alright, so let's talk about the rotation, and I'll start with just the Elun's Chosen build in the Mythic Plus situation. One of the big things that you want to always do when you lead in, on pull, you always want to lead off with a Moonfire. And then after that, without using any cooldowns, it's a pretty basic rotation. So you Moonfire, Thrash to get the bleeds going. I got a Galactic Guardian proc, so you can use that. You want to Mangle, get an Iron Fur rolling, and then basically it's just use these abilities on cooldown. You fill the gaps with Swipe, and that's pretty much it. Now, things like Barkskin, Rage of the Sleeper, Lunar Beam, on cooldown. Same thing with Incarnation, particularly in the raid build. Now, for the Druid of the Claw build, or this Cat Weaving build, things are a little bit more complex. So the way that I would approach it, and it's gonna, like I said, it requires a lot more for you, is that you're gonna start, if you're the tank that's leading out, I would start in bear form. If you're the tank that's not leading out, I would actually start in cat form and lead out of stealth. So let's just assume you're playing with like a Blood DK or a Vengeance Demon Hunter. They're going to be the primary tank. So you're going to start your day in cat form here. So you'll start by leading out with Rake, because out of stealth it does a lot more damage. So you want to basically lead with this, and then say, now it's your turn to tank. So you Mangle to get into your bear form. You keep your Thrash going. I got her Rick proc there. And this is where you would use things like your defensives in order to gain your rage up for Iron Fur. Alright. So you're just going through, you're doing your thing. Alright, your tank taunts off, you immediately rip and go back in, and as you can see I had a couple of combo points right off the start. Now I've got a rip proc, so you want to go back in and tooth and claw that. Go from there, and then you can come back into this. And keep things going. So you can see there's like a lot of switching in between. Alright, you're back tanking again. So now you're permanently in this fact. So basically when it comes to the raid cat weaving build, it's a lot of the same things as regular bear form. Moonfire maintained. You're going to use Thrash on cooldown. Galactic Guardian procs. Let's talk about those real quick. Galactic Guardian procs, you can... they do consume themselves, so you don't necessarily have to hit Moonfire, but if you have like a GCD open, just use the proc. That's really the big thing you want to do. And then when you're in cat form, you want to make sure you have a rate going. You always want to make sure you have rip going. And then as long as you're doing that, you're going to get a lot of value out of the spec for the cat weaving build. If you're in the Elun's Chosen raid build, it's pretty much stays the same. Use your Tooth and Claw procs on your Maul, and then pretty much spend the rest of your rage on Iron Fur. Overall, I think Guardian Druid is going to be in a pretty decent spot overall. It's not going to be like a world-beating tank, but I think it's going to be a good tank if it's one that you are looking to play, and like the versatility and the flexibility of Druid. You get the cool forms. You want to go form hunting and stuff like that. Druid has always got like a lot of fun aspects to it. Guardian's not going to be the meta tank in any form or fashion. I don't think you'll see it in Race to World First. I don't think you're going to see it in High Mythic Plus keys. It needs probably a little bit of a DPS boost. It probably needs a damage aura buff. But we'll see. But overall, if there's anything that you thought I missed, or if there are any questions about anything, go ahead and drop those down in the comments below. Until the next video, hope you all stay safe. Hope you enjoy yourself. You're having fun. You keep on gaming, and we'll see you next time.